Singapore, they had once declared, was merely an afterthought to their Korean odyssey. Natalie and Christophe, a French couple, spoke these words with an almost dismissive air. For them, the true destination in Asia had always been Korea. Singapore, a mere 5-hour layover during a budget flight connection, held no particular allure. Yet, on the day their plane touched down at Changi International Airport, that brief 10-hour transit would irrevocably alter the course of their lives. From the unexpected sanctuary of a public restroom to the kaleidoscopic wonders of a 7-Eleven, from the silent efficiency of the MRT to the exquisite delicacy of a dim sum restaurant, every facet of Singapore they encountered surprised, moved, and even brought tears to their eyes. What catalyst spurred such a profound transformation? Let us delve into their journey, for in a mere 5 minutes, their ingrained worldview would be utterly overturned. Natalie and Christophe were a couple deeply enchanted by Asia, particularly Natalie. Since her early 20s, the continent's myriad cultures had beckoned, fueling a relentless quest for adventure and stimulation. A pivotal moment in her life unfolded during a trip to Malaysia when she was 29. She was basking on the pristine beaches of Langkawi when a sudden downpour erupted. Seeking refuge in a nearby pavilion, she found herself sharing shelter with Ji, a Korean woman caught in the same unexpected deluge. "What a heavy rain, isn't it?" Ji offered with a warm smile. Natalie returned the gesture. "Indeed, I didn't expect such a downpour here." In that instant, an undeniable connection sparked between them. They conversed like old friends, their shared interests in travel and culture flowing effortlessly as the rain gradually subsided. Yet, their conversation extended well past sunset, their camaraderie keeping them rooted in the pavilion. The following day, Natalie serendipitously encountered Ji again while exploring a local market. Their reunion was marked by fervent enthusiasm, as Ji passionately recounted tales of her homeland, Korea, detailing its rich culture and vibrant traditions. Natalie found herself utterly captivated by Ji's vivid descriptions, a deep impression forming in her heart. "One day, I must witness Korea with my own eyes." Ji, in turn, extended an earnest invitation. "You must come to Korea when you have the chance." This heartfelt plea resonated deeply within Natalie. Upon her return to France, the promise of this trip lingered persistently in her thoughts. Finally, the following year, Natalie resolved to embark on her Korean pilgrimage. Her first arrival in Seoul left her breathless, an urban panorama unlike any she had witnessed in her previous Asian travels. The city's modernized dynamism utterly enthralled her. Ji became her guide, navigating the intricate tapestry of Seoul's streets, where ancient temples and bustling markets coexisted harmoniously with gleaming, contemporary shopping complexes. Natalie experienced firsthand the seamless fusion of past and future. That evening, Ji escorted Natalie to a Korean restaurant. "This place is absolutely delicious. You simply must try it," Ji insisted with a radiant smile. Though initially taken aback by the spiciness of Korean cuisine, Natalie quickly succumbed to the allure of Korean BBQ and samgyeopsal. She found herself utterly immersed in the culture, genuinely enamored by its charm. However, amidst her burgeoning adoration for Korea, Natalie's perception of Singapore began to subtly, almost imperceptibly, shift. One day, Ji remarked that while Singapore, like Korea, was an Asian nation, she felt its culture, with its pronounced Chinese influences, was less distinct, less uniquely vibrant than Korea's. From that moment, Natalie developed a curious detachment towards Singapore, her interest waning. Later, after marrying Christophe at the age of 35, Natalie's visits to Korea grew even more frequent. Christophe, initially skeptical of Asia, was swayed by Natalie's infectious enthusiasm and agreed to accompany her. Thus, in the hearts of both husband and wife, Korea ascended to the pinnacle of Asian travel, while Singapore was relegated to the status of a country not worth a dedicated visit. Yet, a profound turning point awaited them. A seemingly insignificant, casually purchased budget airline ticket would, in a mere 5 minutes, alter the very destiny of this couple. Fate, sometimes, arrives cloaked in surprisingly small opportunities. For Natalie and Christophe, it was a cheap flight. While planning their next Korean sojourn, Natalie discovered an incredibly inexpensive airfare. "Christophe, look, this flight is less than half price," she exclaimed excitedly. Christophe peered at the screen, a frown creasing his brow. However, there was a catch. The return flight from Incheon International Airport to France required a connecting stop at Changi International Airport with a daunting 10-hour layover. Ultimately, the irresistible price prevailed. and they booked the tickets. Weeks later, the couple concluded their fulfilling time in Korea, a trip as satisfying as always. On the day of their departure, the flight from Incheon, after approximately 2.5 hours, landed at Changi International Airport. Having completed the transfer procedures, they were indeed faced with nearly 10 hours of waiting. Waiting here for 10 hours feels a bit like a waste, doesn't it? Natalie mused. Christophe, ever the pragmatist, proposed, "Since we're already in Singapore, why don't we step out and explore a little?" And so, with a casual indifference, they decided to set foot on Singaporean soil for the very first time. Their minds were still brimming with cherished Korean memories. Singapore, to them, remained merely a place to pass through. Little did they know what awaited them. The moment they cleared immigration and stepped into the arrival hall, Natalie and Christophe involuntarily paused. The sheer expanse and modern elegance of Changi International Airport astonished them. "It's like something out of a science fiction movie," Natalie whispered, her voice laced with awe. Christophe nodded in agreement. "The space is so luxuriously utilized. It feels incredibly vast and comfortable." Despite the fatigue of their long flight, the distinct ambiance of the Singaporean airport invigorated them. "Korean airports are grand too, but there's something different here," Natalie murmured. Christophe concurred. "Yes, it feels quieter, more orderly." Their first destination, as for any weary traveler after a long flight, was the restroom within the airport. This seemingly mundane choice would become the first impactful jolt to their preconceived notions of Singapore. When Natalie emerged from the ladies' room, her face bore an expression of sheer astonishment and profound emotion. "Christophe, the restroom is unbelievably clean," she exclaimed, her voice barely containing her excitement. Half believing, half skeptical, Christophe headed towards the men's restroom. As he stepped inside, neither of them knew that this casual foray into Singapore was, in fact, the beginning of a life-altering journey. Only 5 minutes had passed since their landing at Changi International Airport, yet these 5 minutes were about to fundamentally redefine their values. The instant Christophe opened the door to the men's restroom, he froze. The sight that unfolded before him was unlike anything he had ever witnessed in any other airport across the globe. Sparkling, pristine tiles, immaculately clean white walls, and perfectly enclosed private cubicles. Christophe couldn't help but glance around. "It's like being in a luxury suite at a hotel," he thought, utterly incredulous. He stepped into a cubicle, his astonishment growing further. The toilet seat was adorned with an array of unfamiliar buttons. Out of curiosity, he pressed one. A gentle stream of warm water softly cleansed him. For a Frenchman, this was a revolutionary experience. The toilet seat itself was warm, a comforting heat against his weary body. Emerging from the restroom, Christophe met Natalie's eager gaze. He nodded slowly. "You're right, it's incredible." Both their faces mirrored the same expression of profound surprise and emotion. Natalie, unable to contain her excitement, began to recount her experience. "The moment you sit down, the seat automatically warms up, and there's even warm water to cleanse you. It feels like being in a high-end spa." Christophe nodded emphatically. "It makes me think of the old, dilapidated restrooms in France. Compared to those simple facilities, this is a different world entirely." But their amazement did not end there. "This cannot even compare to the restrooms in China or Korea," Natalie added, a hint of self-reproach in her tone. She had once adored Korea, convinced it was the pinnacle of Asia, yet its public restrooms, she now recalled, had never offered such comfort. Sometimes, the doors wouldn't even close properly, making one feel quite uneasy. Christophe agreed. However, Singapore's restrooms are entirely different. The cubicle doors extend from floor to almost ceiling, ensuring complete privacy. And the partitions between the cubicles are thick. You can barely hear a sound, Nathalie whispered. To not have to worry about restrooms while traveling, this country is truly wonderful. Her words were imbued with deep admiration and respect. For a traveler, the state of public restrooms is a profoundly significant factor. No matter how breathtaking the tourist attractions, if the restrooms are unclean or uncomfortable, the entire travel experience can be marred. But Singapore was different. Natalie instinctively knew that such immaculate and comfortable public facilities could only be the result of Singaporeans' unwavering commitment to cleanliness and their profound consideration for others. Even the service staff tirelessly maintained their cleanliness, often bending to wipe down surfaces with meticulous care. Witnessing this, Natalie and Christophe exchanged glances. "They are constantly working to keep it clean, aren't they?" Christophe murmured. As they returned to the airport hall, a monumental shift had already begun within them. Perhaps Singapore is different from Korea after all, Natalie whispered. Christoph nodded. Even having only seen the restroom, the impression is incredibly strong, almost inexplicable. It had been less than 10 minutes since they had set foot in Singapore. In such a short time, a single restroom experience had already begun to dramatically reshape their perceptions. Since we're here, why don't we explore a little more? Natalie suggested. Yes, Christoph replied. Let's check out a 7-Eleven. With a light-hearted skip in their step, they began to wander through the airport, unaware of the further surprises that awaited them. As they strolled through the airport, their eyes were drawn to the familiar glowing sign of a 7-Eleven. What will Singapore's convenience stores be like? Natalie wondered aloud. The moment they stepped inside, they stopped dead in their tracks. The scene that unfolded before them far exceeded their wildest imaginations. Onigiri, sandwiches, bento boxes, desserts, drinks, snacks, magazines, toiletries, an incredible array of products, each boasting an unbelievable diversity. The variety of products is astonishing. It's hard to believe, Christoph exclaimed with wide-eyed wonder. Natalie's eyes sparkled as she scanned the shelves. It's completely different from convenience stores in France, isn't it? It's like a mini supermarket. Her voice was filled with pure astonishment and delight. French convenience stores typically offered only drinks and snacks, perhaps a few simple sandwiches at best. But Singapore was a world apart. Onigiri, desserts, bento boxes, each item was beautifully arranged, and the selection was remarkably rich. To be able to buy such substantial items at a convenience store, Natalie struggled to conceal her surprise. They explored the entire store. Bento boxes, sandwiches, drinks. Each category offered an abundance of choices. Just for tea, there were countless varieties. Singaporeans truly can buy anything and everything at convenience stores, Christoph murmured, impressed. Natalie agreed. Everything is displayed so cleanly and neatly, and the expiry dates are clearly marked. They selected an onigiri and a bottle of water and headed to the cashier. And there, another delightful surprise awaited them. The cashier, a young woman, greeted them with a polite bow. "Welcome," she said, her voice warm. She quickly and accurately scanned their items, carefully bagged them, and then presented the bag to them with both hands. She bowed deeply again. "Thank you for your visit. Please come again." This was accompanied by a genuine, heartfelt smile. Natalie's eyes widened. "Even for such a small purchase, to receive such meticulous service," she said, deeply moved. Outside the store, she turned to Christoph. "In France, such service is unimaginable." Christoph folded his arms, shaking his head in admiration. In France, they had never experienced such hospitality. Shop assistants were often stoic. Even tossing items at customers was not uncommon. But Singapore was utterly different. For a purchase of mere dollars, they received treatment akin to a luxury boutique. Even as foreigners who didn't speak the local language, they were served with unwavering smiles. Natalie was even more touched by this. In Korea, sometimes if the shop assistants didn't speak English, they could be quite cold, she mused. But this Singaporean cashier, despite the language barrier, welcomed us with the sincerest smile. The moment she bit into the onigiri, her eyes truly widened. Delicious! An involuntary gasp escaped her lips. Christoph was equally surprised. The rice tastes substantial, and the seaweed is crispy. The filling is also excellent. He recalled the bland, uninspiring sandwiches from French convenience stores. Singapore has its own unique charm, doesn't it? Christoph murmured, eating his onigiri. Natalie nodded. Korea is also a wonderful country, but Singapore perhaps has a different kind of charm? Their impression of Singapore had abruptly shifted. The cleanliness of the restrooms, the variety of products in the convenience store, and the meticulous service all revealed a unique culture within Singapore. "I want to see more of this place," Christoph declared, standing up. "Yes," Natalie proposed. "Let's take the MRT out into the city center." Natalie and Christoph boarded the shuttle from Changi International Airport to the city. The time was 2:15 p.m. The bus schedule clearly indicated, departing at 14:15. Based on their experiences in France, they fully expected the bus to be late. Yet, at precisely 2:20 p.m., the bus silently departed, right on schedule. It actually left on time, Natalie exclaimed, her eyes wide with astonishment. Christoph was equally surprised. "I didn't expect it to be so punctual." In France, punctuality for public transport was an unattainable dream, but Singapore, clearly, was different. The bus was scheduled to arrive at the city center interchange at 3:10 p.m., and precisely on time, it arrived. "Such a punctual country," Natalie marveled. Christoph nodded. It feels like there's a culture of strictness here. From the interchange, they decided to switch to the MRT. After purchasing tickets at a self-service machine, they descended to the platform. An electronic signboard displayed the next MRT train, arriving at 15:23. Christoph checked his watch. Will it really come in 2 minutes? He wondered, half believing, half skeptical. Yet, at exactly 3:23 p.m., the announcement chimed, and the MRT glided smoothly into the platform. Unbelievable. Down to the second, Christoph exclaimed. Natalie, her face alight with astonishment, boarded the MRT. Stepping into the train carriage, they were enveloped by a new surprise. The carriage was astonishingly quiet. There were about 20 passengers, yet not a single person spoke loudly. Everyone sat quietly, considerate of those around them. Look, it's as quiet as a library in here, Natalie whispered to Christoph, her voice a mix of awe and wonder. Christoph whispered back, French subways are so much noisier. People are constantly on their phones, but here it's truly silent. French public transport was often boisterous. Friends laughed loudly, and people engaged in lengthy phone conversations. But Singapore's MRT was completely different. Everyone considered their surroundings, spending their journey in quiet contemplation. The announcements within the carriage were also concise, relaying only essential information. Natalie, observing the carriage, made another discovery. When the MRT swayed, if a passenger accidentally brushed against another, they would softly utter, "Excuse me," and offer a slight nod. It's as if caring for those around them is second nature here, isn't it? Natalie intuitively realized. This is the very essence of a considerate culture. Those disembarking walked off first, followed by those boarding. Everyone naturally adhered to the rules, quiet and orderly. All maintained a sense of harmony. The MRT continued its journey, stopping at each station precisely as scheduled. Each time Natalie checked her watch, she was met with renewed astonishment at this precision. Punctuality is a manifestation of consideration for others. This idea is deeply ingrained throughout society, Natalie mused quietly. Singaporeans truly possess a heart that considers others. Christoph nodded profoundly. Indeed, it's not just about themselves, but also about those around them. This must be Singapore's culture. The MRT arrived at their destination station at precisely 3:47 p.m. With a sense of admiration, they disembarked. Standing on the platform, they paused for a moment. They felt the very essence of Singapore unfolding before their eyes, bit by bit. Cleanliness, thoughtfulness, precision, and woven throughout it all, a deep consideration for others. Perhaps this is the true nature of Singaporeans. After exiting the MRT, they decided to stroll around the area near the station. As they walked along a bustling street, their eyes caught the sign of a dim sum restaurant, Pinnacle Dim Sum. "Shall we have some dim sum?" Natalie suggested. "Yes," Christoph replied. "I'm curious to see what authentic Singaporean dim sum is like." They stepped inside the restaurant, a quaint and bustling establishment, where a kindly chef in his 50s greeted them with a warm, "Welcome." His voice was inviting. As they settled at the counter, a steaming cup of oolong tea was immediately placed before them. "Tea before we even order?" Natalie whispered, surprised. The chef, recognizing them as foreigners, gently offered an English menu and smiled. "First time here?" "Yes, our first," Natalie replied. "Then allow me to recommend some of our classic dishes?" They nodded enthusiastically. First to arrive were the piping hot signature Xiao Long Bao. Each one contains at least 10 folds, the chef explained. The skin is delicate and the broth is rich. Please enjoy them with ginger and a splash of vinegar. Natalie, slightly perplexed, delicately lifted a dumpling with her chopsticks. In the steamer basket, the broth visibly sloshed within its translucent skin, a tantalizing sight. "First, bite a small hole in the skin, sip the soup, then eat the rest," the chef instructed. Natalie followed his guidance, gently biting a tiny opening and carefully sipping. A rush of sweet, savory broth instantly bloomed in her mouth. In that instant, her eyes truly widened. The sensation was one of unprecedented refinement and freshness. The exquisite umami of the pork filling, perfectly complemented by the fragrant spring onions, nestled within a delicate yet resilient skin. The pairing with shredded ginger and a dash of vinegar elevated the flavor to an unparalleled height. This was utterly unlike any Chinese dish they had ever sampled in France. The filling was fresh, devoid of any unpleasant odors, and the wrapper, though ethereal, perfectly contained all its precious essence. Prawn dumplings, vegetable dumplings. Each exquisite dish arrived one after another. Christophe was particularly astonished by the clear chicken soup. The broth is so clear, yet it holds an incredible depth of flavor. "This is simply a work of art," he exclaimed. The chef smiled serenely. "Our pursuit is to bring out the most original sweetness and essence of the ingredients." Throughout their meal, their oolong tea was continually refilled. Finally, 2 plates of refreshing pickled cucumber and sweet yam paste balls were served. After finishing every dish, the couple remained silent for a long moment. Singapore's culinary culture truly embodies the pursuit of original flavors and a spirit of exquisite craftsmanship, doesn't it? Natalie said quietly. Christophe agreed. Yes, simple yet profound. Everything is just right, no unnecessary frills, just the purest of flavors. The chef, listening to their conversation, continued to smile gently. When they settled the bill, he presented them with a beautifully packaged box of pineapple tarts. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. Please come again." Stepping out of the restaurant, the couple walked in silence for a while. Singapore's culinary artistry is truly profound. Natalie finally broke the silence. While French cuisine is wonderful, Singaporean dim sum possesses a different level of subtlety and purity. Christophe nodded. The respect for ingredients, the dedication to manual craftsmanship, the meticulous balance of flavors, everything is so harmonious. In their hearts, their respect for Singapore was transforming into deep admiration, and what happened next would make this admiration absolutely definitive. This, at the time, they did not yet know. Leaving the dim sum restaurant, they realized it was almost time to return to the airport. Before heading back, they stopped at the restroom in the MRT station. Natalie entered the ladies' room, Christophe, the men's. A few minutes later, they reunited outside and began walking towards the ticket gates. However, after a few seconds, Christophe's face suddenly changed. He stopped, frantically searching through his bag, but it was nowhere to be found. "My bag is gone." Christophe's voice was filled with panic. "What? Where did you leave it?" Natalie exclaimed, startled. Christophe desperately tried to recall. "The restroom. I left it in the restroom." Christophe, his face ashen, rushed back towards the restroom. Natalie followed in hot pursuit. The bag was nowhere to be seen. Inside it was a valuable tablet, worth approximately SGD 2,600. They searched diligently but found nothing. "Perhaps we should just give up," Natalie said, her shoulders slumping in despair. Just then, a Singaporean gentleman approached them, holding a familiar-looking bag. "Excuse me, are you perhaps looking for this?" the man asked in fluent English. Christophe's face registered disbelief. "That's my bag. Really appreciate your honesty and effort." The gentleman smiled kindly and handed him the bag. "You're welcome. It's only natural." His tone was utterly understated, as if it were as simple as breathing. Christophe quickly checked the contents. The tablet, wallet, passport, airplane tickets. Everything was perfectly intact. "Unbelievable," Natalie exclaimed, tears welling in her eyes. "Overseas, if you forget your luggage, it's usually gone forever. But Singapore is different." She turned to the man, profusely thanking him. "Thank you so much. You're our savior." However, the gentleman shyly shook his head. "It was just placed near the restroom entrance. Someone must have found it and moved it to a visible spot." The couple was even more astonished. The first person to discover the bag had moved it to a conspicuous location, and this gentleman had then helped them find the owner. A 2-stage act of kindness had brought the bag back to them. Christophe reached for his wallet. "At least allow me to offer a small token of our appreciation." However, the gentleman gently waved his hand, refusing. "No need. I'm just glad you got it back safely. That's enough." This was accompanied by a genuine, heartfelt smile. A pure, unadulterated act of kindness, seeking no reward. "Please wait," Natalie called out, but the gentleman had already melted into the crowd. It all felt like a dream. The couple stood rooted to the spot for a long time. "Singapore is truly amazing," Natalie finally managed to say. "Yes," Christophe replied. "If this had happened in France, we probably wouldn't have gotten it back. In France or even Korea, one could hardly expect a lost item to be returned to its owner. But in Singapore, it had happened as a matter of course." "It's like a movie scene, isn't it?" Natalie murmured. Christophe laughed. "Indeed, that man looked like an angel." They boarded the MRT back to the airport, confirming the contents of the bag once more. "Singapore, perhaps, possesses a charm unlike any other country," Natalie whispered. Christoph nodded. Yes, we shouldn't judge based solely on preconceived notions. Cleanliness, thoughtfulness, precision, and honesty. Everything they had experienced in Singapore was deeply etched in their hearts. This incident, in particular, became a definitive experience that illuminated the national character of Singaporeans. In their hearts, Singapore had transformed from a mere afterthought to their Korean journey into an irreplaceable nation. On the plane, they recounted everything that had happened in Singapore. Perhaps we had misunderstood Singapore, Natalie said, her voice filled with deep introspection. Christoph nodded in agreement. We met many people in Korea and China and learned about their cultures. But this trip, we finally realized that Singapore also has so many wonderful aspects. It feels like we've woken up from a dream. Their initial reason for setting foot on Singaporean soil was merely to pass the time during a transit. Yet, everything they had experienced in just 10 hours had profoundly altered their values. The restrooms, the convenience store, the MRT, the dim sum, and the return of their lost item. All these experiences reshaped their worldview, Natalie agreed. Perhaps, but Singaporeans might not even realize how wonderful these only natural things truly are. The plane took off, finally ascending towards France. Throughout the long flight, their conversation revolved exclusively around Singapore. They wished to relive these experiences again and again, imprinting them deeply into their hearts. Upon their return, they passionately recounted their Singaporean adventures to their friends. The following year, they once again traveled to Singapore as their primary destination. Visiting places like Sentosa, Tiong Bahru, Little India, and Marina Bay, their affection for Singapore only grew stronger. Their experiences in Singapore also influenced their way of life. The value of considering others became practically ingrained in their lives. Visiting Singapore annually, they explored different regions. Each place possessed its own unique charm. Yet some things remained constant wherever they went. The honesty and warmth of the Singaporean people. If we hadn't bought that cheap flight ticket, we might never have truly known Singapore, Natalie mused. Christoph agreed. Yes, a short 10-hour transit, and the first 5 minutes alone began to change our values. Life is truly incredible. Thus, for Natalie and Christoph, Singapore was no longer merely a travel destination, but an indispensable part of their lives. To this day, they still visit Singapore at least once a year, and each time, they discover something new and are deeply moved. Singapore, this nation, is like an inexhaustible wellspring. Every visit reveals a new facet of its charm. Natalie and Christoph's story teaches us the importance of discarding preconceived notions and witnessing things firsthand. It also shows us that even a mere 5 minutes can be enough to spark a life-changing encounter.